folks, and welcome to another Songwriter Sessions here at Wilson Valley Mercantile. This is in anticipation for the next Songwriter Roundup. I've got an interview with our host, Ely Buck Davis, and our next guest, David Bridwell. So thanks for joining us and enjoy. So guys, thank y'all for joining us here today, and we'll just jump into some questions. David, why don't you tell us about your influences? I want to say somewhere on the interweb found some information that you mentioned John Prine and Townes Van Zandt, and how has that inspired you to cultivate your own unique sound?
Yeah, my immediate influences are actually a little bit more specific than that. It's like John Gorka and Steve Poltz and Todd Snyder, Tom Russell, basically a bunch of people that nobody has heard of before, except for Todd Snyder is pretty popular. But going back when I started about 10 years ago, my initial influences were kind of like solo artists. And they were guys who were very songwriters, and they were really good at telling stories within their songs. And that's something that I always found super appealing, was when they could be really entertaining with the talking that they did between songs. So those guys inspired me initially, and I know Todd Snyder is like a great example of that.
Yeah.
Come to find out, I was living in Albuquerque when I was like compiling this list of influences, and Todd Snyder got a big influence out of the Hill Country area and his hanging out at Cheatham Street and the Devil's Backbone. So I kind of really learned the perspective that led to his kind of talking and his crowd perspective going around Texas and seeing all that firsthand.
I've yet to see, you mentioned Todd Snyder. I've yet to see him live yet, but my wife and I went to the Ragweed show recently in Waco, the big Boys from Oklahoma show. Cody Canada does a lot of co-writing with Todd Snyder up in East Nashville. And he was like, this is a song I wrote with Todd Snyder. I asked him if he would come out, and he said he might, and everybody started screaming, or at least the singer-songwriter nerds like myself who are like, oh yeah, he's coming out. He said it was too big of a crowd, so we're just going to sing it without him. And I was like, dadgummit. But yeah, Todd Snyder's an amazing storyteller.
Yeah.
In between songs, like you said.
I got a story about that, just that there's one venue in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where I saw some of the best gigs with both Cody Canada and Todd Snyder, two separate gigs. But the Cody Canada show, I got a kind of story that he gave me a whiskey and a woman's number, because he did give me a whiskey. The Cody Canada and his departed band were drinking quite a bit and having a lot of fun towards the end. It was like the last show of the tour, and I was having so much fun. And so when I was leaving, this woman just handed me her phone number on a piece of paper, and I was like, I gotta credit Cody Canada to that as well, because if the band sucks, you don't get people's phone numbers. People don't want to do that sort of thing, but when everybody's really happy and the band's great, then that creates those kind of situations.
Well, being a touring artist as you are, you perform in all kinds of different venues. And how does playing in a more intimate and smaller venue, like or even an event like the Songwriter Roundup here at Wilson Valley Mercantile that Ely hosts, how's that compare versus playing a bigger show?
All my shows are really small shows. No, I actually played one of my biggest and most exciting shows just last week by opening up at the Redbird Listening Room for Rob Dark Smith. And that was quite an experience, just thinking of like going to the very first time I saw that venue and hearing and meeting those people and become friends and familiar with all the people playing there, and having them say, hey, David, you've improved and you're really getting better with your storytelling and all this, to having Dallas Burrows say, hey, we want you to open up at the Redbird for us.
Nice. So
just to do that and to have a crowd full of people that I mostly knew and recognized, and the more supportive crowd that I ever had. Of course, there was the one time that my camera didn't work. I went and bought a $700 camera and then didn't have enough space for recording, which speaks to my own. I don't personally identify as a videographer, but I had a lot of pieces in place for that. But yeah, that was amazing. And then, you can play at the cantina at 7A Ranch, where you got the pool there, and then some little kids bring their own little portable speaker, and then they come up to you, they're playing their little music at the pool, and then they come up to you and request a song. And then I say, no, I don't know any covers. I don't play any covers. But it's like, you guys got your own portable speaker right there that you're listening to. Just play the damn song on your speaker.
Yeah. For the aspiring songwriters that may be watching this, listen to this, that may want to get into this adventure, you mentioned about these people that you look up to, telling you that, you're getting better. They're offering you opening slots and things like that. I was once told that, you're going to get 100 no's before you get one yes. And so obviously you're starting to get your yeses. I just want to know, and I want you to tell these aspiring songwriters, how long have you been doing this before you reach this point?
I guess I started writing songs about a dozen years ago, and that's about around when I picked up the guitar. And I think it is about defining your own kind of unique skill sets. And I know that I feel like for me, songwriting is my major kind of skill. And when I first came into the music recording studio, and I was sitting there with these professional session players who were just the best at what they do, this is their job, this is how they get paid. And I'm like, I don't want to be like the hobby guy who comes in and is the weakest link. So I was like, my job here is to be the best songwriter and the best singer that I can, so I can elevate up to the level of these session players. And so that's how and everybody will find their own unique, talents and skills. Some will be better and more intuitive about picking up the guitar, and they can lean in that direction and so on. But at least that's for me, that's really where I'm focusing on right now, and just write these songs, sing these songs really well. I tried to build influences all around Texas. So I got a vocal coach based out of Houston, and I take voice lessons, and I just get feedback and prepare for the studio with that. And then, of course, the Audio Dallas studio is really a situation that resonated with me, and those studios out in the DFW area kind of draw me more than the other ones. So yeah, just finding all those pieces of connecting all the right things together.
I guess the point I was trying to stress with that question is, this new generation, everything's so much instant gratification. They've got to be a star on TikTok, and if they're not a star, they quit, they give up. But seeing someone like you that have been traveling, I know you travel in a van. If we could bring that up too at some point, I always thought that was very intriguing. But doing the whole van life thing and playing shows and doing it the long way, is kind of unheard of in today's times. But I respect it more, when I see guys like you doing that, because I feel like it's a lost art of finding your sound the long way.
Yeah, I think that there is a misconception. A lot of people don't think about. We talk about the addictiveness of social media from the user perspective of swiping, but we don't talk about the addictiveness of social media from the contributor and the content creator perspective. Because when they get something that gets a big old flood of views, they get all charged up from that. But you have to recognize that what you're doing is going to be incremental, and you're growing something very slowly. And so they will say, oh, I just need that one viral hit or whatever. But, really, that's an exceptional case. Really, you need to plug away and have that gradual growth. And that's the mentality that I'm very passionate about my YouTube channel. But the underlying mentality behind there is also this just gradual growth and gradual increase. And I do got to say that, for 3.5 years, I lived as a digital nomad touring around Texas, and I played a gig per week around Texas doing that. And I was a digital nomad, and so I lived in short-term rentals, Airbnbs, tiny homes, a rooming house. But I did not have a van. I had a truck, my good old Toyota Tacoma that carried me everywhere until it finally died. That was one of the signals that I, besides also getting laid off from work and no longer being a digital nomad but becoming a regular nomad, those were things that contributed to me kind of saying that this 3.5-year lifestyle, I can take a break from it.
Yeah.
Well, when did that? So how long ago did that happen?
About 4 months or so ago, I got laid off. And I know a lot of folks are in their mind, the first thing they think is I'm going to go all in on the music and get a bunch of gigs. But my first thing was I got to get a job. But then
you got to eat.
Then I was going on a date to Copeland Dance Hall, and my And she was really excited about it. She texted me before the date and she said, I'm really excited to be stuck with you for an hour in your truck on this long drive. But we got stuck for 3 hours in my truck, and she was very good in about being stuck for 3 hours with my truck broken down. Although that was the last date that we had together, because she found it out during that long period of time that we had to talk to each other. I found out that she wanted to get married and that I didn't want to get married. And in hindsight, I should have known because her name was Mary. Yes, they call that foreshadowing. But yeah, now I got a full-time job and a brand new vehicle. So,
Well, congrats on those things.
Yeah. Well, at least you're listening to the universe, man. You're kind of going with the flow, and that's good.
yeah, some people are like, wow, you're a whole new person now. Because, like, there was, for example, somebody, she's like, I thought you were this traveling musician, but turns out now that you're this full-time PhD cognitive neuroscientist working for a medical device startup driving a hybrid.
That hurt my head, that sentence.
Sorry about that.
I'll survive. Well, musically, what's next for you?
So I'm living more in the production domain online than I am in real life. I'm trying to a little bit downscale my live music playing just because I'm adjusting to a new work situation, commuting 5 days a week, 40 hours a week in the office, and I want to succeed. So, but I'm looking to rebuild that maybe for how I can. But in the meantime, I'm going full on in writing new songs and working on producing new songs and aiming to get a band together. That might be like a 2-year timeline. So right now I'm just kind of like producing more and thinking more of those songs that will work with the band instead of the kind of singer-songwriter songs that I had before. So that's kind of my long-term plan there.
Nice.
In the meantime, I got to say that I'm still releasing a new single every month, and I've been doing that coming up almost on 2 years of that. So that's going to continue for the next like maybe 2 years or so until I've got about 40 singles released out of the studio. And then there'll be the releases that are part of the band kind of releases, which is going to be considered a second album. And I'm aiming for 40 songs there. And that's a lot, I guess, to be honest, because it's intimidating when you put out a number that's not really aligned to where you're at right now. But hopefully we'll get there and we'll see how that goes.
Sounds like a good goal to me.
Yeah.
That's that pretty well covers everything I wanted. Ely, have you got anything else that you wanted to pick David's brain about?
I'm just curious because I haven't been in the studio in a while. And are you doing a lot of this DIY or are you going to a studio somewhere? I know you used to go to one in Dallas, correct?
Yeah, I go to Audio Dallas Recording Studio. So basically, I go there and do 4 demos, and then I record the 4 vocal tracks to the previous 4 demos that I did. And so I basically come out there every 4 months to get those 4 new ones. And they got that great group of sessions players out there, and they have like a songwriter package. So they're just very comfortable with kind of like coming in and sorting it out in like an hour, and very good at what they do. But at the same time, when I talk about this second album, I am planning on using AI backing tracks for that. And the idea there is that it's going to allow me to scale up the music. Obviously, producing songs out of a studio costs a lot more money. And there's songs that I couldn't produce from the studio because maybe I don't have enough of an incentive. And so creating AI backing tracks kind of sends it off in a different direction. And I would still write the songs and I still sing the songs. And that's one of the components that I'm working on right now is just recording the audio at home and then working with someone to help me make sure I'm mixing it correctly.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
I've actually never heard of that being an option. I've heard of, the Beatles, they put out a song a while back and they used AI to recreate John Lennon's voice. And I was like, I don't know. But the background is backing tracks basically, but you're still going to do your own vocals. That's interesting. I'm curious to see how that turns out.
Yeah, one of my initial approaches with that was to you input the lyrics into it, and then it produces the song with the AI vocals, and then you can use software, train it on your own voice, and then it translates it into your vocals. That was my initial approach, but that just doesn't work kind of well enough. And so you really just have to strip out the backing tracks, sing your own vocals on top of it yourself. But that's where I'm at with that. And then the idea there is those would be distributed across all platforms. So I haven't distributed my first album and my studio tracks onto Spotify because I hate Spotify kind of categorically. But the notion of where the music industry is going and the idea that these sort of songs that can be scaled up, because like the mentality of Spotify today is like there's artists who are like, you got to release, a single every 2 weeks. You just have to have such a speed frequency of how you release singles to feed the platform. And it's like, well, that doesn't make sense for the majority of musical artists out there because it's not economically viable and you don't get paid enough money. So the solution to that is to bring down the economics of it, make it more affordable to produce music. And that's where bringing in the AI allows you to scale up that. And so it could be tangible for me to actually release a new single every 2 weeks if you use that. And then it's like, well, now that aligns with kind of the mentality of that terrible platform Spotify, and so I can allow this to get on there, but I'll still be keeping my studio tracks on YouTube and on my website, and there will be a paid, some of them would be for paid download, the best of them would be for free listening, that sort of thing.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
I think that's all I've got. John, you got anything else?
I wanted to toss out that's a pretty cool, interesting way of doing it, and I look forward to seeing how it turns out.
Yeah, me too.
Appreciate y'all being with me today and talking about this. See you on September 4th, I think, right, Ely? Is that the right date?
That's the day.
For the
I didn't look
Songwriter
before we
Roundup?
started.
It is September
Yep.
4th, indeed.
Okay, good. We'll see you September 4th.
Sounds great. Looking forward to seeing you and playing out there.
Thank you,
Hey,
guys.
I did forget one thing. I wrote this down before, and I was like, oh, I need to make sure I mention this. So David was our first artist. David and Natalie Metcalf were our first artists at the first roundup at Wilson Valley Mercantile. So we look forward to having you back and having a little reunion.
Heck yeah.
That's cool, yeah.
I thought it was cool.
Also, we're going to be in Elgin on the 3rd.
But yeah, we got that one too.
Yep. Liberty Tree.
8 o'clock at Liberty Tree Tavern.
That'd be a good show to go to, too, or as well.